I had always prided myself on my work ethic and dedication to my job, but that pride was put to the test one fateful afternoon. The office was filled with the usual hum of keyboards and ringing phones, but an unsettling tension hung in the air, a foreshadowing of the conflict that was about to unfold. The manager, a figure whose ambition often eclipsed his integrity, had been acting unusually secretive for days. I noticed him lingering over my desk, his eyes flickering to my computer screen, where I had just finished displaying the designs for our company's new firewall, a project I had poured countless hours into, refining every detail, ensuring it was impenetrable. He claimed it was a collaborative effort, but I knew the truth. He was stealing credit for my work, positioning himself as the mastermind behind an initiative I had spearheaded. As I watched him strategize his next move, resentment bubbled within me. It wasn't just the theft of my work that stung, it was the realization that he was willing to sacrifice my integrity for his gain. I had always believed that hard work would be recognized and rewarded, but the manager had a different philosophy. Charm and manipulation could overshadow the truth. Each passing moment deepened my anxiety. Would my efforts be erased in the eyes of our clients? Would I be left standing in the shadows while he basked in the glory of my creation? The impending breach felt imminent, not just of the firewall itself, but of my trust in the system we had built together. That day, the stakes were higher than ever, and the thought of our upcoming presentation loomed over me like a dark cloud. I had to confront the reality that I was up against a force far more treacherous than a mere technical oversight. The manager's ambition was relentless, and my resolve was about to be put to the ultimate test. I steeled myself for what lay ahead, knowing that the conflict was not just external, but a battle within myself to uphold my principles against an adversary who thrived on deceit. The day of the presentation arrived, and I found myself pacing in front of the conference room, rehearsing my lines and mentally preparing for the battle ahead. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, and the weight of the manager's deceit pressed heavily on my shoulders. I could picture the board members seated at the long table, their faces a mix of anticipation and skepticism. This wasn't just another pitch, it was my chance to reclaim my narrative and prove my worth. The design of the firewall had been a labor of love, a culmination of years of experience and countless revisions. It was built on a robust architecture, featuring multi-layered security protocols that I had meticulously crafted. I had integrated intrusion detection systems and firewalls that operated not only on the application layer, but also at the network layer, ensuring a comprehensive defense against any potential threats. My pride in this project was unwavering. I had created a fortress meant to withstand the most sophisticated attacks. As I reviewed the slides one last time, I could feel my heart racing. The presentation scenario was set. We were to showcase the firewall's capabilities, emphasizing its resilience and adaptability in a rapidly evolving digital landscape. I had prepared countless scenarios highlighting our proactive approach to cybersecurity, demonstrating how the firewall could neutralize threats before they even reached our systems. However, I was painfully aware of the shadow looming over me. The manager was right there, ready to swoop in and take credit for my hard work. When the meeting began, I took a deep breath, presenting with a calculated firmness that I hoped would convey my expertise and passion. I detailed the firewall's design, explaining each feature while keeping a watchful eye on the manager. His expressions were inscrutable, yet I could sense his eagerness to interject and claim ownership. As I spoke, I could feel the board members' attention shifting, drawn into the intricacies of my work. I was on the verge of turning the tide, but the uncertainty of how the manager would respond gnawed at me. Would he undermine my efforts mid-presentation? Would he attempt to divert attention away from my words, making them his own? As I reached the climax of my presentation, I highlighted the firewall's testing phases, showcasing rigorous simulations that had proven its efficacy. I watched as the manager leaned forward slightly, a predatory glint in his eyes, ready to pounce as soon as I paused. I had anticipated this moment, and I steeled myself for what was to come. The tension in the room was electric as I concluded with a confident assertion of our readiness to lead the market in cybersecurity. Just as I finished, the manager interjected, trying to divert focus onto himself, claiming he had been the guiding force all along. The board's eyes flicked between us, and I could feel the stakes rising higher than ever. This was not just about a presentation, it was a battle for recognition, a fight for the truth amidst a web of deceit that threatened to unravel everything I had built. I had to respond to assert my position, but doing so would expose the fragile line I was walking between professionalism and personal integrity. I took a breath, ready to reclaim my voice once and for all. As the tension escalated in the boardroom, I felt the weight of every eye on us. The manager's opportunistic nature surged forward, and I knew I had to take a stand. With a steady voice, I addressed the board. While I appreciate the manager's input, it's imperative to clarify that the foundation of this firewall is rooted in my design and dedication. The testing phases, the simulations, every byte of code reflects my commitment to our security needs. His expression shifted, a mixture of disbelief and irritation crossing his features. I could sense the shift in the room. The board members leaned in, their focus shifting back to the specifics of my work. I continued, harnessing the momentum of the moment. This firewall doesn't just protect our assets. It represents a shift in how we approach cybersecurity, and I believe that we have the tools to set the industry standard. The manager's face flushed, anger boiling beneath the surface, but I pressed on. I've spent countless nights ensuring this project not only meets but exceeds expectations. This isn't just about figures on a slide, it's about the safety and trust of our clients. The integrity of our company lies in our ability to stand by our promises. I could see the board members exchanging glances, assessing the tension between us. It was clear that they were aware of the stakes. They understood this was a pivotal moment. Just as I was about to reinforce my points with specific data, a sudden alarm blared through the room, cutting off my flow. The lights flickered ominously, and I felt a chill run down my spine. The room erupted into chaos as the security team burst in, urgency etched on their faces. "We have a breach," one of them shouted, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically from anticipation to panic. I felt my stomach drop. The impending breach I had feared was no longer a distant worry, it had become my immediate reality. The manager's smugness evaporated, replaced by a look of stark horror. The board members scrambled to understand what was happening as the security team began assessing the situation. "What do you mean we have a breach?" the manager stammered, his veneer of control shattered. I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction at seeing him rattled, but the gravity of the situation quickly overshadowed that. "Our systems are compromised. We need to shut down access immediately," another security personnel yelled. I could see the panic spreading among the board members as they exchanged frantic whispers, confusion etched on their faces. "This wasn't supposed to happen," the manager exclaimed, turning to me with a desperate look as if I somehow held the answers. "You were supposed to ensure our systems were secure." I took a moment to gather my thoughts, forcing myself to remain calm amidst the chaos. The breach was a catastrophe, but it was also an opportunity to highlight the importance of our project. I raised my voice over the commotion. "This is exactly why we need a robust firewall. The vulnerabilities we discussed are real, and this incident underscores my point. We cannot afford to overlook the significance of our cybersecurity measures." The room fell silent for a brief moment as my words resonated, and I could see a flicker of realization in the board members' eyes. The manager, however, was still grappling with the fallout of the breach. His facade of confidence had crumbled, and the implications of this incident were beginning to dawn on him. As the security team scrambled to contain the situation, the gravity of our predicament settled in. The breach wasn't just a technical failure, it was a direct threat to our reputation and our relationships with clients. The panic in the room transformed into a shared understanding of the stakes involved. I turned my gaze back to the board members, who were now fully aware of the consequences of this breach. Their expressions had shifted from skepticism to concern, and I knew this was my moment to advocate for my work once again. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing a significant challenge. However, it's imperative that we learn from this incident and move forward with a stronger, more secure foundation. My firewall is designed to adapt to threats like these, and we need to implement it immediately to safeguard our assets." The board members nodded, a renewed sense of urgency igniting in their eyes. The manager, now visibly shaken, attempted to regain his composure. Yet it was clear that the breach had stripped away any semblance of control he had over the situation. As the security team began to restore order, I felt a surge of determination. This was my chance to reclaim my narrative, to show not just my expertise but my unwavering commitment to the company's future. I would not allow this breach to define us, nor would I let the manager's actions overshadow my contributions. The meeting had transformed from a presentation into a pivotal moment of truth. I had to navigate the delicate balance of professionalism while asserting my rightful place in this company. I stood tall, ready to lead us through the storm ahead, armed with the knowledge that my work was not just a project. It was a vital part of our identity and our future. The fallout from the breach unleashed chaos throughout the office. Panic rippled through the boardroom as the gravity of the situation settled in, and it was evident that the repercussions would be monumental. The executives, once confident and composed, now wore expressions of shock and disbelief. They had just witnessed a monumental failure in security, and it was clear that the loss of the $210 million client was imminent. I watched as the manager, who had always exuded an air of superiority, now appeared small and cornered. The confidence he had flaunted mere moments ago evaporated, leaving behind only a desperate man clinging to the remnants of his reputation. The board members exchanged frantic glances, and their murmurs grew louder, each voice filled with concern over the ramifications of the breach. "How did this happen?" one executive questioned, his voice taut with anxiety. "We trusted our security measures were solid," another added. "This is catastrophic." The atmosphere was thick with tension, and I felt a mixture of anxiety and a sense of vindication. The manager's machinations had finally caught up to him, and the consequences were far-reaching. As the security team worked furiously to contain the breach, I realized that the narrative was shifting. No longer was this a battle for recognition, it was a fight for survival, for the very integrity of our company. I seized the moment, stepping forward as the board members turned their attention toward me. "This breach is a direct result of the vulnerabilities we had discussed," I asserted, my voice steady amidst the rising chaos. "We need to act swiftly to protect what we have left. Our clients depend on us to deliver secure solutions, and we must reinforce our commitment to their safety." The board members nodded, the urgency of my words resonating with them. I could see the wheels turning in their minds as they processed the implications of my message. The manager, however, glared at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and panic. He was losing control, and it was evident that he had underestimated the gravity of his actions. "We have to implement the new firewall immediately," I continued, my determination unwavering. "It was designed precisely to address the kind of threats we are facing right now. This is our opportunity to turn this disaster into a catalyst for change, one that reinforces our commitment to cybersecurity and client safety." The board's attention shifted back to me, and I could see that my words were beginning to resonate. The urgency of the situation was palpable, and I could feel the tide turning in my favor. The manager, realizing he was losing his grip, attempted to interject, but his voice was drowned out by the murmurs of concern from the executives. "We cannot afford to lose our clients, especially not the $210 million account," one of the board members exclaimed, his face pale with worry. The ramifications of the breach were starting to hit home, and the reality of the situation was sinking in. As the security team worked diligently to assess the damage, I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. I knew this was a pivotal moment, not just for the company but for my own future within it. If I could maneuver through this crisis effectively, I could solidify my position as a leader in cybersecurity. "We need to act fast," I urged, my tone resolute. "Let's convene a task force to tackle this breach head-on, and I will lead the charge. We will analyze what went wrong, reinforce our defenses, and ensure that we never find ourselves in this position again." The board members nodded in agreement, their expressions shifting from panic to determination. I could sense a newfound respect forming, and the manager's influence was waning. He was now just another voice in the room, one that had lost credibility. As discussions began to unfold around me, I took a step back, watching the dynamics shift. The executives were rallying around the idea of reforming our cybersecurity strategies, and I felt a surge of hope. This was our chance to rebuild, to emerge stronger from the ashes of this breach. The meeting quickly evolved into a brainstorming session, with ideas flowing rapidly as we worked to devise a plan of action. I contributed insights on how we could enhance our firewall, emphasizing the importance of proactive measures in an ever-evolving threat landscape. Each suggestion was met with nods of approval, and I could feel the energy in the room shift from despair to determination. However, amidst the flurry of ideas, I couldn't shake the sight of the manager's defeated expression. His arrogance had led him to dismiss the value of my contributions, and now he was facing the consequences of his actions. His earlier attempts to assert dominance were crumbling before my eyes, and I felt a sense of justice in witnessing his downfall. As we moved forward, it became clear that the breach had catalyzed a significant shift in the company's culture. The executives were now more willing to listen, to value integrity over manipulation. I realized that the battle I had fought against the manager was not just personal, it was a fight for the very values that defined our organization. With each passing moment, it became evident that this incident would not only impact our client relationships, but also reshape the way we approached cybersecurity. The manager's downfall was a stark reminder of the consequences of arrogance and deceit. As the meeting concluded, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The path ahead was daunting, but I was ready to lead the charge. I had reclaimed my narrative, and I would not allow the actions of one individual to tarnish the integrity of my work or the future of our company. In the days that followed, the fallout from the breach would resonate throughout the organization. The executives would scrutinize every decision, and the manager would find himself isolated, stripped of the power he once held. I knew that this was not just about a single incident. It was about fostering a culture that prioritized integrity and accountability. As I reflected on the events that had transpired, I understood that this experience had forged a new identity for the company, one that would rise from the ashes of deceit to embrace a future grounded in trust and security. I was determined to be at the forefront of that transformation, guiding our organization toward a brighter, more secure horizon. The lessons learned from this breach would serve as a foundation for our future endeavors, and I was ready to embrace the challenge. I had emerged not just as a survivor of this ordeal, but as a leader, prepared to champion the values of competence over arrogance and integrity over manipulation. The road ahead would be arduous, but I was ready to navigate it with unwavering resolve, knowing that the future of our company depended on it. As I stood amidst the aftermath of the breach, I couldn't help but reflect on the intricate web of ambition and deceit that had led us to this moment. The manager, once a figure of authority and influence, was now reduced to a shadow of his former self, his arrogance dismantled by the very consequences he had sought to evade. I felt a mixture of vindication and sorrow. While I had fought valiantly to regain my narrative, it came at a steep cost for the company and for him. The executives were now discussing the necessary steps forward, emphasizing the need for a robust overhaul of our cybersecurity measures. I watched as they rallied around the idea of reform, their expressions a blend of determination and concern. They were aware that the breach was not just a failure of technology, but a failure to recognize the importance of integrity in our operations. I spoke up, my voice steady and clear. This incident should serve as a wake-up call for all of us. We must prioritize transparency and accountability in our practices moving forward. Our clients trust us to protect their information, and we cannot afford to let them down again. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging heavily in the air. I could see the board members nodding in agreement, their earlier skepticism transformed into a shared commitment to change. The manager, standing off to the side, remained silent, his expression a mix of defeat and contemplation. As discussions progressed, I felt a sense of purpose swell within me. This was not just about me reclaiming my narrative. It was about redefining our corporate culture to value competence and integrity over manipulation and deceit. I was determined to lead this charge to ensure that our future was built on a stronger foundation. In the following weeks, the company underwent a transformation. We implemented new protocols that emphasized ethical practices, and I was at the forefront of these changes, leading workshops and training sessions that focused on the importance of cybersecurity and the ethical implications of our work. I was no longer just a technician. I had become a champion for integrity and accountability within the organization. The manager, now sidelined, struggled to find his footing in this new environment. His attempts to regain control were met with resistance from both executives and staff who had witnessed the fallout from his actions. He had become an example of what happens when arrogance overrides the values that should guide our actions. As I looked around the office, I could see a renewed sense of purpose among my colleagues. They were energized, ready to embrace this shift towards accountability and integrity. We began to foster a culture where everyone's contributions were valued and where hard work would not be overshadowed by deceitful actions. I often thought back to that chaotic day in the boardroom when everything had changed. The breach had been a catalyst, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about our practices and the leadership that guided us. It had revealed the cracks in our foundation, but it had also illuminated a path forward, one that I was determined to follow. As time passed, the company's reputation began to rebuild. Clients who had been wary started to regain trust, and we worked diligently to prove that we had learned from our mistakes. Each success reinforced my belief in the values we had adopted, and I felt a sense of pride in being part of this transformation. In the quiet moments of reflection, I realized that the breach had not only reshaped the company but had also reshaped me. I had emerged stronger, more resolute, and committed to upholding the principles of integrity and competence. I understood now that true leadership is about more than just authority. It is about lifting others up, fostering an environment of trust, and being willing to stand firm in the face of adversity. As I looked to the future, I knew that challenges would continue to arise. The corporate landscape is ever-evolving, and new threats would emerge. But I was prepared to face them with the knowledge that I had not only reclaimed my narrative but had also helped to forge a new path for my company, one that would prioritize integrity over arrogance and competence over deceit. In the end, the lessons learned from the breach would serve as a reminder of the consequences of unchecked ambition. I was determined to ensure that our organization would never again falter under the weight of arrogance. Our future depended on it. Each day was a new opportunity to reinforce our commitment to ethical practices, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next, confident in the knowledge that we had built something truly